Welcome to Midfield SportsCast and the 32nd episode of the Divided Friendship Podcast. Today it is me, Dawson, and it is Luke.
Yeah.
We will not have Maddox with us today due to scheduling conflicts again, but the show must go on, you know. So here we are, me and Luke, filming this today, no Maddox. Alright, so we will first be reviewing games from last week as usual. Then we will go on to our top 5 games of the week, and I'll tell you guys the updated scores and whatnot and our predictions from last week, how many points we got, all that. Then we will go on to our upset pick of the week. And since Maddox is not here, we will only be reviewing Michigan's game last week and kind of looking over their game this week against Washington. So I'm going to hand it over to Luke to review game number 1.
All right, game number 1 of last week, probably the best game of last week, was Alabama versus Georgia. Now, the first quarter, really just the first half overall for Alabama, Bama was just beating the brakes off of Georgia. By the end of the first quarter, it was 21-0. End of the second quarter, Alabama was leading 30-7. But second half, Georgia kind of rallied back into this game. They got some stops, got some scores, and forced some turnovers, and they were back in the game. And eventually, they took the lead. They went from being down 21-0 or 28-0, and then they had a 34-33 lead. And first play after the kickoff, right after Georgia had scored, was Ryan Williams, who the 17-year-old stud, who is incredible, with a 75-yard touchdown catch that would end up winning the game. He had 6 catches, 177 yards, and a touchdown. That's just incredible to do as a 17-year-old, especially when you're playing teams like this, like Georgia. They got the 2-point conversion, and then Georgia went on a long drive with a chance to tie the game and send it to overtime. But at about the 20-yard line, Carson Beck threw what was his third interception of the game, and that would give Alabama a win. So the final score is 41-34, Alabama won.
He also threw that pick to another true freshman, Zabian Brown. All right. Next game we will be covering is the probably upset of the week. Kentucky over number 6 Ole Miss, 20-17. This was Kentucky's first win in Oxford since 1978. It has been that long. Obviously, coming into this game, Ole Miss had played a whole bunch of non-factors competitively. I still thought that they were probably going to win this game, but stats don't lie. Kentucky's defense has been pretty solid to start the season. For Kentucky offensively, Brock Vandegrift, 18 for 28, 243 yards, and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Demi Sumo Karngbe. Interesting. 11 carries for 47 yards, and Josh Caddis had their only rushing touchdown on the day. That doesn't make sense. It says 0 carries, 2 yards, and a touchdown. Receiving, they were led by Dane Key, who had 8 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown. Barian Brown, right behind him, 5 for 88. Octavius Oxendine had 2 sacks for the Wildcats, 4 total for the team. All right. On to Ole Miss offensively. 18 for 27 for Jackson Dart, 261 yards and a touchdown. Very similar stat line to Brock Vandegrift. Henry Parrish Jr., the running back, 13 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver again, Trey Harris, 11 catches, 176 yards and a touchdown. He was my prediction for SEC Offensive Player of the Year. He has kind of put up very good numbers, but unfortunately not close to other top dogs receiving-wise. Caden Prescorn was their second leading receiver with 1 catch for 42 yards. Defensively, Suntarine Perkins with 2 sacks. Princely Umanimilian with a sack and a half. Jared Ivey with 1. They had 5 total team sacks, 10 TFLs as a team. Kentucky got outgained passing and outgained the Rebels by 1 yard rushing. So Ole Miss actually had more total yards than the Wildcats, but in the end of this game, Ole Miss chanced to tie it, and the field goal kick by Caden Davis was missed with time winding down, and that ultimately ended up being Ole Miss's downfall, as they had a chance to send it to overtime, and the kick was missed, and Kentucky walks out with an upset win over a number 6 Ole Miss team.
All right, next, I'm going to talk about Penn State and Illinois, where Illinois kept it close for most of the game. Most of the game, it was 14-7. Illinois started off with a long drive to score, and Penn State would counter right back. And then no one else scored until the third quarter, so no points in the second quarter. A few missed field goals, where Penn State would get the lead 14-7, and Illinois would keep it like that for a good portion of time. Another missed field goal, and towards the end, though, Illinois threw an interception on a drive, and that would lead to a Penn State score and a fumble recovered by Penn State later. So Penn State won 21-7. I'm just going to go through that one a little quickly because not much happened.
All right, next game. Number 20, Oklahoma versus number 23, Kansas State. This one ended with Kansas State winning 42-20. Big win for the Kansas State Wildcats. Another Wildcats team. Oh, goodness. Ugh. All right, offensively for the Cowboys, Allen Bowman, 26 for 50, 364 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Ollie Gordon, this was probably one of his better rushing games, 15 carries, 76 yards, averaged 5 a carry. And Trent Howland had their lone rushing touchdown, 4 carries, 23 yards, and, of course, the touchdown. Oklahoma State's leading receiver, Dejon Stribling, 7 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown, had a long of 77 on 1 catch. Brennan Presley, 6'4", 70 yards. Defensively, no sacks for Oklahoma State, only 2 tackles for loss on the whole day. Nick Martin and Kendall Daniels both recorded 1. And Corey Black had 1 interception for the Cowboys. Now, for Kansas State, Avery Johnson had a big day, 5 total touchdowns. He went 19 for 31, 259 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, with 5 carries for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. DJ Giddens was their leading rusher, 15 carries, 187 yards, and a touchdown. Jace Brown, their leading receiver, 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. Garrett Oakley had a catch for 19 yards and a touchdown. And Dylan Edwards, nope, read that wrong. Will Ansiox, I don't know how you say that, but 1 catch for 2 yards and a touchdown. Defensively for the Wildcats, also no sacks on the day, so 0 total sacks for both teams in this game. Austin Romaine, Marquez Siegel both had half a TFL, and Brendan Mott had 1 tackle for loss. Kansas State had a lot more total yards than Oklahoma State, 559 to 490. Now, granted, that is a lot of total yards for both teams, but Kansas State just had a good bit more. Got outgained passing, but outgained Oklahoma State rushing by almost double. 300 rushing yards to 126 rushing yards. Just not a good game for Oklahoma State. Not very high on them. And Kansas State with a big bounce-back win after that loss at BYU.
All right, I'm going to talk about a top 10 team being upset here. I'm talking about Arizona winning 23 to 10 over Utah. Uh Arizona just had control of this game for basically most of the game. Uh Arizona looked like a ranked team, even though they are not ranked. They lost to Kansas State, that dropped them out. This Arizona team is still a good team that a lot of people are still going to sleep on and continue to sleep on even after this. 23 to 10 the final. Arizona, uh, of course, their star receiver Ted Ted McMillan. I'm not saying his first name. Tetaroa had only 6 catches for 50 yards, but still had some good plays for Arizona. He had 23 yards after the catch. And Noah Fafita, the quarterback, went 19 for 31, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. For Utah, though, who was on the losing end of this game, their quarterback was not Cam Rising. It's Isaac Wilson. And he went 20 for 40, 280 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. You had for Utah Dorian Singer. He had 155 yards. Dorian, 9 catches, 155 yards, no touchdowns. So despite that performance from him, that's not enough to get 13 points and win against Arizona. 23-10 final.
All right, I'm just going to recap a couple games here real quick. And then I'm going to give it to Luke to recap the final game. First, we had Oklahoma at Auburn. Oklahoma came out on top 27 to 21. This was a very gutsy performance from the Sooners, as we know they were missing their top 5 receivers. So, with that said, Michael Hawkins, the true freshman, was also making his first career start at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And that played out decently for them. Michael Hawkins, 10 for 15, 161 yards with 69 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. Leading receiver was J.J. Hester, 3 for 86. Oops. Somehow, Oklahoma was able to pull out the victory here despite everything going against them. The other game that I'm going to touch on real quick, Virginia Tech at number 7, Miami. The controversial play at the end of the game where it was ruled a touchdown on the field went to the booth. They overturned it because there was a Miami defensive player touching the ball while nobody had possession of it while he was out of bounds. So that's why the call was overturned. That's what the ACC officials said. So that's what they went with on the field. Virginia Tech obviously had a kind of disappointing season, as a lot of people may have thought of them to be kind of the sleeper team this year for playoffs, but off to a 2-3 start on the season. Not very good. Obviously, in this game, showed that they have potential to be a good football team, but at this point in the season, already basically out of playoff contention. But Miami keeping theirs alive. Cam Ward, a huge game, 24 for 38, 343 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Also added 57 rushing yards and a touchdown. So that is the other game that I wanted to touch base on real quick, and I'm going to give it to Luke to recap the final game of Louisville and Notre Dame.
Louisville and Notre Dame. In the end, it came down to one play for Louisville, where on 4th down they couldn't convert, and that would give Notre Dame all the momentum they needed to finish out the game. Louisville kept it close towards the end. Towards the end they started to come back, but towards the start it was Notre Dame up 21-7 in the first quarter, but then Louisville started to gain back some momentum, started to get themselves back in this game, pick themselves up, and they got it within a score, but then Notre Dame will just go right back on the field and score again. But then Louisville come right back on the field and score again. And then they had another chance to tie it, and it was on 4th down they couldn't convert, and Notre Dame would get the stop. Notre Dame would go on to win the game. 31-24. Just going to go over that really quick.
All right. Now, on to the next portion. We will go over the scoring for last week. All right. Let's see here. So, last week, Luke went 3 for 5 on picks. His correct picks were Alabama, Penn State, and Texas A&M. While me and Maddox both went 4 for 5. He got Bama correct, Penn State, Notre Dame, and A&M correct. I got Bama, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Kansas State correct. I missed the Arkansas Texas A&M game. Maddox missed the Oklahoma State and Kansas State game. Luke missed Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Louisville Notre Dame. With that being said, now I gained 13 points from last week. Maddox gained 10, and Luke gained 8. That puts Luke and Maddox in a tie for second with 26 points, and I am in first with 31 points. All right, now on to the next part. We will be predicting the scores of our top 5 games of the week. First game we have is going to be Syracuse heading on the road to a number 25 ranked UNLV team that is undefeated. This will be a 9 o'clock kickoff on Friday night. It'll be on Fox Sports. Luke?
I'm going to take UNLV 35-28 here. They are ranked now. Another one of those Mountain West teams you're going to have to look out for. Syracuse also was ranked earlier this year. They would end up dropping out. Syracuse, don't overlook Syracuse because Kyle McCord on there, that's a really good quarterback on the. I wouldn't say bad, but a team that you wouldn't expect to have that good of a quarterback. Obviously he was at Ohio State last year, transferred over to Syracuse, but I still think UNLV is the overall better team, and I think some key plays and some key chances missed by Syracuse is going to be the reason why UNLV is going to win 35-28.
All right, I'm going to be saying my prediction, and then I'm going to let you guys know what Maddox thought was going to happen. For me, I am going to pick Syracuse to upset UNLV here in Allegiant Stadium. I'm going to pick Syracuse to win 38-30. Kyle McCord, I think, is an excellent quarterback, and he's really thriving in the system that they are running at Syracuse. They're just letting him air the ball out. He's having great success with it, and I just think that the passing game proves to be too much here for UNLV to overcome. All right, now for Maddox's picks. He picked Syracuse to win this one 42-36. Now, the next game we will have, let's see, we'll go number 12, Ole Miss at South Carolina, 3:30 kickoff time on ESPN.
All right, Ole Miss coming off that tough loss to Kentucky. I'm just going to keep things simple here. I will think that they will bounce back, get the win over a good South Carolina team. I'm taking Ole Miss 43-25.
All right, for me, I'm going to also be taking Ole Miss. I think they'll get a nice bounce back win here over South Carolina. I feel like I'm kind of just saying what you just said, but I think they will be able to hang on and kind of get their season back on track, as obviously one loss in the SEC does not end your season, and definitely not now. So I'm going to be taking the Ole Miss Rebels to win this one 26-19. And Maddox picked Ole Miss to win this one 36-32, so we all pick Ole Miss to win. Next game we have is going to be, we're going to have SMU head to Louisville. This is a 12 p.m. kickoff time on ESPN. Number 22, Louisville, that is.
All right, another team looking for a bounce-back win. But SMU just beat Florida State 42-16. I mean, not that that's now that we've seen what Florida State truly, like how they truly are, what they truly are. Not really a huge accomplishment. But Florida State still is a good team in terms of the talent they have on the roster. Now, I don't know why the talent on the roster that they have is not doing what they should be doing. But I will be taking SMU here to upset Louisville. I think that lost Louisville is going to affect them a little bit, and I think it's going to again come down to some fourth downs that Louisville can't convert. I'm going to take SMU in overtime, one overtime, 31-28.
All right. As much as I would like to pick SMU here, I just don't think that it is going to happen. I do think SMU is a very solid football team with a very good chance to beat Louisville on Saturday, but I'm going to pick the Cardinals to hold them off. We're going to go Louisville 27, SMU 20. Next game we have will be a Big Ten matchup where the undefeated Rutgers team is going to head into Lincoln, Nebraska to take on the Cornhuskers, who just suffered their first loss of the season 2 weeks ago at whenever they played Illinois. This will be a 4 p.m. kickoff time on Fox Sports. Nebraska is favored by 6.5. Wait, I didn't say Maddox's score for the Louisville game. Whoops. Not used to doing this. He picked Louisville 28-16. Now we will go to Nebraska Rutgers.
All right, as of the past couple of years, Rutgers has looked like a really good football team. Nebraska this year, per usual, the start of the year Nebraska hype train has come to an end as they lost to Illinois, and I think Nebraska is going to start playing how they usually play once the hype dies. They're not going to be very good. I'm taking Rutgers here to upset Nebraska by a final score of 38-21. 38-21.
All right, I'm going to disagree here. I think this Nebraska team is a very good football team. Illinois also showed that they are a very solid football team. And also, if you think back on it, Nebraska had that one play where the tight end, I think it was like their third or fourth tight end on the depth chart, was able to sneak out into the end zone. He was wide open, and Dylan Raiola just overthrew him. That would have had a chance to tie the game there. So I still think highly of Nebraska, and I think Nebraska is going to end Rutgers' undefeated season. I'm going to pick the Cornhuskers to win this one by a score of 31-17. And Maddox agrees with me here. He is going to pick Nebraska to win this one 27-17. Now, final game of the week. What should be game of the week is going to be number 9 Missouri headed to Kyle Field to take on number 25 Texas A&M. A&M favored by 2.5 here. This will be a 12 p.m. kickoff time on ABC and ESPN+.
So far, Texas A&M's only loss was to Notre Dame earlier in the season. Other than that, they've won all their games since, and they've had some pretty tough opponents, such as Arkansas. Never mind, Arkansas is the only tough opponent they played. Other than Notre Dame. What?
You said Arkansas is the only tough team they played.
Other than Notre Dame. Missouri also almost got beat by Vandy. They got a 30-27 win in overtime. Squeezed one out there. Texas A&M is favored to win this game, but again, I'm going with another upset. Technically, I'm taking Missouri. Taking Missouri here by a final score of. I'm gonna go high scoring shootout here. I'm gonna say 56-31.
That ain't a high scoring shootout. 56-31.
Well, a high scoring game, not a shootout, but a high scoring game.
All right. I feel like this is like the third time that we've had an A&M game. I know it's at least the third time. Because we had A&M Notre Dame, A&M Arkansas, and now this. Excuse me. Thank you. All right. Mizzou and A&M. I think I am going to be picking. I don't know. This is a tough one. I'm going to take Missouri to win. I'm going to pick Missouri to win this one by a score of 34 to 27. And let's see what Maddox's pick is right before we head to upset of the week. He has A&M winning this one 31-28. So he is the only one that picks Texas A&M this week. All right, now for our upset pick of the week. I'm going to give it to Luke here to start us off.
Okay, well, yes, this is an upset. Number 10, Michigan is not favored on the road against Washington. Washington is favored by 1.5. Yes, I'm taking the boring pick here. What gives me points gives me points. I'm taking Michigan to win. I'm not going to go into detail because I will be going into detail later in the episode whenever we preview the game. What?
Since when do we get points for correct upset picks?
We do.
Since when?
He made that thing.
Oh, well, that's boring. Anyways, my upset pick of the week is going to be... What is it going to be? Not really seeing a lot of matchups here that I'm liking to be upsets. Oh my gosh. I really have no clue. I'm just not seeing a lot of upset potential in this week. Let's see. Well, I mean, I guess... Nope, I found it. I'm going to be taking Duke to upset Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is favored by 9. Did we get an upset game for Maddox?
I do not believe.
I don't think we did either. Let's see here. I don't think we have one. We will let you guys know by the end of the show if we are able to get his upset pick of the week in by then. Anyways, for now, we will head to the final segment of the podcast. We will have recapping Michigan last week and previewing Michigan for this week. I'm going to give it to Luke to talk about the Michigan and Minnesota game.
All right, well, other than that fourth quarter, Michigan actually looked like Michigan again. For the first time in a minute, Michigan actually looked like Michigan. Because this season we haven't been so great. But, other than the fourth quarter, we actually looked like ourselves again. Now, the fourth quarter, was sad because we almost got beat by the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Onside kick was recovered by Minnesota, but it was there was a flag that one of their players was offsides. I don't know about that. I do not think he was offsides. I think we got bailed, but I am not complaining. Michigan won 27-24, nail biter against Minnesota. I'm done.
Okay, keep talking.
About what? The next game?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my upset pick of the week, Michigan versus... What?
What are you talking about upset pick of the weeks for? You already talked about that.
Yeah, because it was my upset pick of the week. That's what I'm saying. This was my upset pick of the week. It's Michigan at Washington. Washington is favored in this one. This is a 7:30 kickoff time. Washington favored by 1.5. Washington really hasn't looked great this year, if I'm gonna be honest with you. So, this is a national championship rematch, so you still might want to tune into this game. This could be a good game. This season they beat Weber State, Eastern Michigan, lost to Washington State, beat Northwestern, and lost to Rutgers last week. But Michigan also hasn't looked great themselves either. looked a little sloppy against Fresno State. Looked awful against Texas. Didn't look very good against Arkansas State. I will say we did look really good against USC for the most part. Still, some things need to be fixed. The passing game. And just talked about it last week. We beat Minnesota. Like I said, Michigan needs to fix the passing game. One of their coaches even said that they can't rely on just big explosive run plays to beat this team. They're going to have to get Alex Orji involved in the passing game some more. They're going to have to give him more chances for some downfield throws because I promise you he can connect on these throws. I promise you that. Alex Orji can be a good quarterback. They just got to give him more chances. So, yeah, I'm going to take Michigan here to get the win. I never mentioned a score. I'm going to say Michigan 38-28.
All right, for me, just kind of what Luke said. We know that the offense is not as good as it has been in previous years. Everybody knows that Michigan needs to be better in the pass game, not just the quarterback, everybody. But it's hard to say if they will really ever get it clicking because this is what, our fourth game of the season?
Fifth.
This will be our fifth game of the season.
No,
We've already.
our sixth. Because we won 4, lost 1.
Whatever game we're on, we're already almost at the halfway point of the season. We've had 2 different quarterbacks. We're switching up our offensive line. It's just hard to create chemistry that way. So everybody knows that passing attack needs to be better. The run game, I think, is pretty good where it's at, but yeah, that's about all I have. The defense has looked pretty solid outside of the Minnesota fourth quarter. Yeah, that's about all I have for this one. I'm going to take Michigan to win this one. What a shocker, 27-24 for the third straight week. And that is all we will have for this podcast, as Maddox is not here to talk about his Buckeyes. So actually, I do have an announcement to make. I mentioned earlier that I will be putting out a Group of 5 show, just kind of to recap Group of 5 teams, because we all know one of them will be making the playoffs this year, at least. So now, that will be making its debut on our channel next week. I'm not sure a date next week, but as we are now at the midway point through the season, I will start making that and producing that for you guys. We thank you guys for tuning in to this one, and we will see you guys on the next one.